What's up guys, it's Nick here. Welcome to another video of my top 100 games list. In the last episode we did games 90 through 81, and in this episode we're going to be doing games 80 to 71. So if you guys haven't checked out my previous videos, which were 100 through 91 and 90 through 81, the links will be in the description. So without further ado, let's start things off with number 80. Number 80. I've always been a fan of RPGs, but one of the series of RPGs that I never really got into until recently was the Shimmy Guy Tensei series. And I first got into them with the Persona games, but I haven't really played the real Shimmy Guy Tensei games until I played Shimmy Guy Tensei IV. Now, Shimmy Guy Tensei 4 is the first and so far only Shimmy Guy Tensei game that I've beaten outside the Persona games. And unlike the Persona games, Shimmy Guy Tensei 4 focuses more on gameplay, where Persona focuses a bit on social life and confidants. But I'm not saying that's a bad thing, as Shimmy Guy Tensei 4's gameplay is a lot of fun. It introduces this press turn system that's a lot of fun to learn, and you have to learn really quickly, as the tutorial boss, Minotaur, pretty much forces you to learn the press turn system in order to beat him. And he's not the only boss that's a lot of fun to beat. There's a lot of other bosses that are fun and challenging to beat as well as collecting demons like the Minotaur to destroy other demons and fusion those demons and a bunch of demons pretty much. It's a lot of fun just to go through the game and also make a lot of decisions, as the decision making is a big part of this game, as it also is part of the bosses, as well as changing the ending that you get, as you can either get a chaos ending, an order ending, a neutral slash good ending, or a bad ending. And I like all these endings except for the neutral ending, as you have to go through a bunch of side quests in order to get the neutral ending. And it kind of just ends after you do a bunch of side quests. There's a few bosses here and there, but it kind of just ends after that, and it's kind of just stupid in my opinion, and I find it annoying to go through side quests, as they're supposed to be side quests, but they're required if you wanted to get the neutral ending. I also like characters like Jonathan and Walter, but I didn't really like the other character Isabu, which were the three main characters, as Walter and Jonathan got more development than I think Isabu did, and were shown better, and they were more expressive than Isabu was, so I found them more enjoyable than Isabu was. The music is also really good in this game, and the story was what kind of drove me to continue playing the game. But the game does start off pretty slow. The first few hours are a bit annoying, and I kind of dropped the game after like the first hour because I felt it was pretty boring. But once you get to like Tokyo, it's pretty cool, and a lot of fun to just go through and collect demons and fight bosses and explore the world of pretty much Japan. And yeah, just overall a really good game. Just starts slow but gets better over time. Number 79. I've always liked making things, as I would always play with something, whether it be Legos or, in this instance, Play-Doh, and later on clay, as I was a pretty big fan of ceramics, and I made a bunch of different pottery things which were really cool and even based off of some video games. And when I heard there was a claymation video game that was pretty good and popular, I was pretty interested. Now, Hilux 2, in my opinion, is the best art game, as its art style, music, and visual effects are just so good, and it really makes it stand out from other video games, being this claymation art style that is almost never like seen in any video games. Its CGI is also really good of the few cutscenes that it has, and it's just such a unique experience that is unlike any other game. And it's a lot of fun too. The gameplay is a lot of fun, going through playing as the main character Wayne and flying through, especially the spaceship. when you get the spaceship and you are in this like third person going through the world and seeing it through a third person view instead of the typical bird's eye view that you see, it's just such a vibe, honestly, especially with the music that is with the spaceship. It's just unlike anything else, and I love it. I also love the humor in this game. It's pretty funny here and there, and although its story is a bit not really the best, it doesn't really have to be, as it's just off the walls and just funny and enjoyable. The bosses are a bit annoying, but they also are really well designed in terms of like art style, and I also just love the combat as well. It was a lot of fun just making this party of four and finding lost antennas and making this powerful team and getting the best armor and all that stuff. And although it's a bit short, I did enjoy pretty much every minute of it just by looking at it, honestly, of how beautiful the claymation is, enjoying the music as well. The visual effects for each and every magic attack is just completely different from each other, and they're all just amazing to see. Even using an item is just so amazing to just see, and seeing the visual effects is one of the best parts of this game. The only bad things that I have to say is really just some of the bosses are a bit annoying, like that one that just keeps accelerating and becoming this vast, like monstrosity of a unit and makes you like leak, which is pretty much like poison. And that was really the only concern that I had, as well as getting lost here and there, as you don't really know where these places are and where to go. But honestly, getting lost isn't really a bad thing of how beautiful the world is in Hilux 2, and so it's a beautiful game, honestly. Number 78. I've always been a fan of first person dungeon crawlers, as I was always curious on what's to come next. And Severed is, in my opinion, the best first person dungeon crawler, and it's a ton of fun and very unique from other first person dungeon crawlers. Now, I played Severed on the Wii U, as I feel like the best way to experience Severed is with the touchscreen. Now, I haven't experienced it on any other console, but I feel like only consoles with touchscreens really makes it a really good experience, as you pretty much use the control stick to control where you want to go throughout the dungeon slash overworld, and you use stylus or the touchpad, and you use it to slice through enemies, as there'll be enemies that will pop up and you have to slice them with your stylus slash touchpad. And it's a ton of fun, as each enemy is completely different, and as how they block attacks or from where you have to slice them from. And at the end, you have to slice off their limbs, and you use those limbs to level up your abilities. And it's just a ton of fun, honestly, going through the dungeon, exploring secrets and finding more like body parts to level up and become the strongest character that you can be. And it's honestly a lot of fun. The only downside that I find with this game is that it doesn't have the best soundtrack, and it doesn't really have the best story or really characters in that fact as well, as I never really found any of those things kind of memorable of the game. The only thing that I really found memorable was it being fun, unique, and its art style is also pretty unique as well, as it's made by the same people that made Guacamelee. But I feel like this game is a bit more unique, as Guacamelee is kind of just a Metroidvania, which a lot of games are, but I feel like Severed kind of takes the spot as it being unique, fun experience that is kind of unlike any other game, and that's why I really enjoyed it, I think. So that's why it deserves its spot at number 78. Number 77. Now, I might get a little bit of hate for this, or maybe not. I don't really know, but honestly, I feel like I should have put this game a bit higher, but The number 77 spot is Kirby's Return to Dreamland. Now you're probably thinking Kirby's Return to Dreamland should be placed higher, or maybe you think this is a right place for it to be. I honestly think it maybe should be a bit higher, but I decided off on 77 was a good spot for it, as I do find Kirby to be very enjoyable, but it's not really challenging. It's very easy. It's also pretty short. The only real challenge is the true arena, but I had a lot of great memories with Kirby's Return to Dreamland, as the abilities were a ton of fun to discover and to use, as there's a ton of new move sets for each ability in this game. It's a lot of fun. I also had a lot of fun with my friends, as the multiplayer is a ton of fun to just enjoy with friends, although it can be annoying at times. But it was really the only way I could beat the true arena, honestly, was with the help of my friends. And the mini games that also came with it were a lot of fun, as well as the second quest, the EX quest, was a lot of fun to go through. And the music, the visuals, everything about this game is really good. Like I said though, the only bad parts about Kirby games is that it's just kind of easy and also short. So that's why it deserves a spot at 77. Number 76. Now, I might also get some hate on this one as well, as my number 76 spot is Spider-Man for the PS4. Now, I'm not saying Spider-Man PS4 is a bad game. In fact, I think it's a really good game, and deserving a spot of 76 is pretty good, honestly. I really like the character development slash relationships, like MJ and Spider-Man, or Miles and Spider-Man, or Aunt May and Spider-Man, and seeing their interactions was really cool, and I really enjoyed those. The characters themselves are also really enjoyable. The movement of just swinging on spider webs and going through New York City and collecting backpacks and emblems and taking pictures and doing side quests is honestly a ton of fun. The only bad parts I didn't really like about Spider-Man PS4 is that it kind of gets repetitive. The combat does stay a little bit fresh with the skill trees and getting new web variants, but I still found it pretty repetitive in my opinion. I also didn't really like the story as much, as it really focused on the villain being Alter Ego, and he was really the main villain for like 10 hours of the game, but then Dr. Octavius becomes another villain, and I didn't really like the branching of two separate villains, and then he also breaks out a bunch of other villains in a prison, and then they don't really get that much screen time, and they're not really important, but they look important, and it's just honestly not the best story in my opinion. Although I did like the ending, and the ending almost made me cry, where spoiler, Aunt May dies. It really was sad at the end, but honestly, it's a really good game. I just didn't like the story as much. It also felt like you were just playing a movie, and the movie was pretty flashy, and I liked the action scenes and everything. The story, like I said, wasn't really the best in my opinion, but it really just felt like you were playing a movie and you're just spamming the square button and doing quick time events with cutscenes, and it didn't really feel like too much of a game in the sense of doing the main quest, but just honestly venturing around New York City was a ton of fun. Overall though, I honestly think Spider-Man PS4 is a really good game. I just think that it has its flaws and it has its really good things, and so it kind of evens out to be just a really good game, but having some flaws to it. Number 75. Now, as I was talking about before with Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, I really like the character Donkey Kong, as he's this funny ape that kind of just goes around and just doing anything for bananas, honestly, and his games are a lot of fun, and one of those games is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Now, I really enjoyed a lot of the Donkey Kong Country games. I liked 1, 2, 3, Returns, and Tropical Freeze, but I honestly think Tropical Freeze just out inches Donkey Kong Country 2 by a little bit. I think Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is a lot of fun. I love the levels, the level design, and how they interact with the world around Donkey Kong Country as each level kind of progresses this kind of story slash changing of the environment, which is really cool. And I also really liked how they introduced new characters that Returns didn't have, as Returns only had Diddy Kong. They introduced characters like Dixie Kong that haven't been seen in a while, as well as Cranky Kong that are available partners to Donkey Kong that really switch up the gameplay, as Cranky Kong can pogo on spikes and Dixie Kong can get a bit more height than Diddy Kong can. And it's a lot of fun. They also added a funky mode, and who doesn't love that? Funky Kong is a ton of fun to play as well, as he's only exclusive to the Switch version, but he is a lot of fun to play as, although he's pretty broken. The gameplay is a lot of fun, and the movement, honestly, of just rolling around as Donkey Kong and defeating your enemies and all that stuff is a lot of fun. The minecart levels are also a lot of fun, like usual. But there are some bad things to it. I didn't really think there was too much of a post game. There wasn't really too much to do other than get KONG or to get the puzzle pieces, but it didn't really reward you as much, and I didn't really feel like there was really a necessary motive to get those collectibles. I also didn't find the bosses to be the best. I think the bosses were a bit better in Donkey Kong Country 2, but I do find them not to be the worst thing in the world, but I don't find them to be the best of the bosses that we've seen in Donkey Kong Country. I also think the music wasn't as memorable. I can't really think of a single track from Tropical Freeze off the top of my head that I really enjoyed. Like unlike Donkey Kong Country 2, which I can think of, like Sticker Bush Sympathy, which is a really good song. In Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, I can't really think of a single track that I really enjoyed. But I don't have to say that the soundtrack is bad. I'm just saying that it's not really memorable in my opinion. But yes, honestly, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is a really good game. It just didn't have some of the things that are in the game aren't the best in the series, and so that's why it's at 75. Number 74. Recently I've gotten more and more into the visual novel genre, as I love mysteries or even just interesting stories in general, and when I heard there was a game by the same creators that made the Ace Attorney games that came out late in the DS's lifestyle, I was pretty interested. Now, Ghost Trick is a visual novel where you're pretty much dead and you possess other objects in order to use your ghost trick on them and solve puzzles. And it's really fun. It uses the DS really well, as you use a stylus to transfer your soul from one object to another, and it's very interesting of how the puzzle solving mechanic kind of works. And I really enjoyed it. I really liked its story and plot twist, and its gameplay was really fun and unique. But it did not have too much gameplay, as it had a lot of more text than gameplay, which makes kind of sense because it is a visual novel. But in my opinion, I think it's a really good game, but I don't think it's my favorite visual novel, as there was really no replayability and it wasn't that memorable, as I can only name really one character off the top of my head, which is Sizzle, the main character. And it really didn't have any branching pathways either. It was very linear. There was only one story and that was it. Unlike other visual novels, which you'll see later down on the list, that have branching pathways and different plot twists that determines different outcomes and endings and all that other stuff. But in this game, it was just a linear, one story narrative, which was a bit boring, but it's still a really good game. Number 73. Now, I've always been a fan of fast gameplay. I've always loved having to continually do something, honestly, and get the adrenaline running. And one of those games is Sonic Mania. Now, Sonic Mania is probably my favorite Sonic game as it combines zones from Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles. And they really take most of the good zones from those games. And it's that fast, fun gameplay that you know and love from Sonic that is in this game. And it's not even made by Sega, as it's made by the fans like Christian Whitehead, which is honestly amazing. The visuals, the music are all really good as well as the characters, as well as the DLC too, with Sonic Mania Plus adding characters like Mighty and Ray. It also has a lot of cool special stages. I really liked and enjoyed those, as well as the special stages in the Encore mode. And there's a lot of gameplay to the game. Although it is kind of short and it does get repetitive when you go to Encore mode, it's not that much of a difference, but it still is really fun and enjoyable. And I don't find every zone to be the best thing. Zones like Oil Ocean or Lava Reef I didn't find to be the best choices, honestly. And some of the bosses were a bit annoying, especially Oil Ocean's second boss in my opinion is really annoying in my opinion. But other than that, I think it's a really fun game, especially the replayability is also good, as well as you can go through the level as like Knuckles or some other characters and kind of break the game in a way, and how there's multiple pathways that you can take, or there's some knuckle routes here and there, which is pretty cool and increases the replayability. And also there's multiplayer as well as co-op, and that's also a lot of fun as well. Also Mean Bean Machines in this game too, which is pretty hype. But overall, Sonic Mania is a really good game, and that's why it deserves its spot at number 73. Number 72. Now, as a kid, I wasn't really allowed to play any M-rated games, as I was mainly playing a bunch of Nintendo games, and my parents just didn't allow me to play M-rated games. But on the Wii U, there was one M-rated game that I wanted to play, and was pretty much the first M-rated game that I played, which was Bayonetta 2. Now, Bayonetta 2 is this fun, flashy action game, with a lot of flashy cutscenes as well. I really enjoyed its music and visuals as well, as especially because the Wii U standards, it was one of my favorite games on the Wii U. And I really liked its references as well, because they referenced other Nintendo franchises, as you were able to dress up Bayonetta as several different Nintendo characters like Samus, and you got this like charge shot. Link, where if you equip the right weapon, you can actually equip the Master Sword. They even had a weapon of the Chain Chomp being a literal just weapon for her feet, as well as being able to dress up as Fox. And if you enter chapter 16, you can actually literally pilot an R-Wing, which is better than the other Wii U Star Fox game, Star Fox Zero. And even just that one little snippet of the chapter, it's not even the full chapter of 16, it's still better than Star Fox Zero. But honestly, Bayonetta 2 is just a really fun game, and it's a really fun action game just to play around, pull off combos, and it's very satisfying. The only thing that I didn't really like about Bayonetta 2 was its story, as I think Bayonetta 1 has a better story, but I think Bayonetta 2 has better gameplay, as I just found it more enjoyable with its weapons and combos. I also didn't really like the character Loki too much, but he wasn't that much of an annoyance. I thought he was just a little bit of annoyance, but not too much. But it was really just a story that I felt like wasn't as memorable or enjoyable as the first game, and it wasn't the worst story, but it wasn't really the best story, and I think Bayonetta 1's story is a bit better. But overall, Bayonetta 2 is a really fun action game. Number 71. Now moving on to another M-rated platinum game, Mad World. Now I think Mad World and Bayonetta 2 are very close in terms of just quality of game, as I find them both to be really fun action games. And although Bayonetta 2 has more kind of combos, Mad World is kind of just pull out the chainsaw and just rip them to shreds, honestly. and it's I feel like a lot more unique, especially with its art style being this like black and white kind of comic book kind of style. I found it really enjoyable, and it's really stands out from other games because of its art style. I also really liked its humor as well, and although Bayonetta 2 is also have funny scenes here and there, I found its humor in Mad World to be kind of just all around really funny, especially with the commentators as they just commentate the stupidest things, especially when you're even just playing the game, not even the cutscenes. They just think of the stupidest things, and it's just so funny. I also really just enjoy the gameplay and especially the music as well, where the music is pretty much all rap, and I don't really like rap, but Mad World really just made me get into rap as it's just so good and I really enjoyed it, especially the boss themes as well. But there are some bad things in Mad World, as I didn't find its story as memorable. Same thing with Bayonetta. I didn't really like its story honestly, and I couldn't even tell you what the story really was other than killing people. I also found that really, other than the characters like Jack and the Black Baron and the commentators, I couldn't name you another character, as they weren't really memorable and they didn't really have any depth to them. But it was really just a one and done, and you killed most of the bosses, and they really didn't show up anytime later before. And some of the bosses are a bit annoying slash unfair, I do have to admit, but I really enjoyed some of the other bosses, especially the final boss of Black Baron was a lot of fun to fight, and especially his theme as well. But overall, Mad World is a very unique and fun action game that is a lot of fun and has a really good soundtrack as well. And that is going to be it for today, guys. So that was my picks from 80 to 71 of my top 100 games list. Make sure to stay tuned for next week, where I'll be discussing games 70 through 61, and stay tuned for the rest of my list right here on A Nick.